All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber. We have this special coverage of a live Diddy hearing in downtown New York in the federal courthouse. It wrapped up a earlier on, but that's okay. In case you missed it, we have with us Law and Crime's very own Elizabeth Milner, who was in that courtroom. And Elizabeth, it's so good to see you. I have so many questions for you. I want to take one at a time. First of all, how did Sean Diddy Combs appear? And was there anybody there in attendance for him?
Honestly, Jesse, I think the biggest surprise at the court hearing was how Diddy looked. When he walked into the courtroom, people were shocked, especially because his hair looked much grayer, almost like Santa Claus. The last time I saw him in court was in December, and now it's March. In just 3 months, the change in his appearance was very noticeable. Maybe being in MDC Brooklyn has been hard on him, or the stress from his federal case, or even his fall from fame, is starting to show. He looked different. Last time, he looked thinner. This time, he seemed to have gained some weight. Not in a bad way, just different. His hair already had some gray before, but now it's a lot more obvious. Many of us watching, including other reporters, were surprised at how much older he looked. There were also fewer family members in court this time. Before, most of his kids were there, except his youngest daughter. This time, only his daughter Jessie Combs, his son Christian Combs, also known as King, and his mother Janice Combs came. When Diddy came in, he looked for his family right away. He waved to them and mouthed, "I love you." When he left, he even mouthed, "Hi, Mommy," to his mom. His other kids, Quincy, Justin, the twins, and his youngest daughter Love, who's just 2 years old, weren't there. Maybe they had schedule conflicts or didn't think this hearing was that important. It felt different from before, when his whole family would fill a whole row in the courtroom. This time, they were just in a small corner. Still, Diddy looked happy to see them and have their support. Another change was that his lawyer, Anthony Rico, wasn't there. He recently filed a letter saying he can't work on the case anymore. That also felt like a big difference compared to the last hearing.
The defense attorneys basically said there's no way I can continue. Not entirely sure what that even meant. By the way, it was interesting when you mentioned his appearance. It could be the stress. It could also be, and I have no way to confirm this, he doesn't have access to the same kind of beauty regimen as he might have had on the outside, and whether that meant dyeing his hair or whatnot. I mean, he's not the youngest guy, so it's something I thought about. Okay, so I want to now get into the substance of this hearing. A big part of this hearing was regarding the CNN tape, the tape of Sean Combs purportedly beating Cassandra Ventura, who by all accounts appears to be one of the key victims in this case, victim number one, to be more specific in this case, that there was this allegation regarding what CNN did to this tape, and there was back and forth. Remember, this was published in March of last year. No, it was May of last year. So talk to us about what the back and forth was regarding this tape, because I have to imagine it could be a key piece of evidence in this prosecution.
Like you mentioned, Jesse, one of the key points in the hearing was about an important video the government wants to use as evidence. They believe this video is critical to their case and want the judge to allow it to be shown in court. Now, just to be clear, the judge didn't make a final decision yet, but he did give a strong hint about what might happen. The defense, on the other hand, disagrees with the government. In a letter, they argue that the video is misleading. They say a forensic expert looked at it and found that CNN had edited the video, changed the order of the clips, removed the timestamp, and possibly sped it up. But let's be honest, Jesse, we all saw that video. Whether CNN edited it or not, it clearly showed Diddy violently attacking Cassie Ventura. It was disturbing and hard to watch. It kept playing on a loop on CNN that day, and a lot of people were shocked. Even though the defense claims the video is altered, the fact is, Diddy already made a public apology after it came out. So, while they're arguing about whether it should be allowed in court, most people have already seen what happened. Still, legally, they have to use the word, allegedly, until a decision is made. The government really wants this video to be part of the trial. Meanwhile, it seems like the defense may try to file a motion to block it from being shown to the jury. But there's also the question, what if jurors have already seen it on TV? The judge suggested a possible solution. Maybe the defense could recreate the video the way they believe it originally happened and show it to the government. If both sides can agree, that would settle it. But if they can't, then the judge will step in, and they'll have to deal with it in another hearing. For now, No decision has been made about whether the video will be allowed as evidence. But the government made it clear they see it as a major part of their case. Also, looking back, many people didn't believe Diddy's alleged victims before. But once that video was released and people saw it with their own eyes, opinions started to change. Even though the incident happened back in 2016, the video brought it back into the spotlight. For Cassie, it may feel like justice that people now believe her, but seeing that video play over and over again must be painful too. So in short, no ruling yet, but this video is likely going to be a big issue in the trial.
Because, the defense, they can't deny what the video is, but they seem to be denying the context in the sense that this might have been a domestic spat, but it's not necessarily evidence of sex trafficking. And as I mentioned before, the prosecution would come back and counter that and say, well, where was she running away from? She was running away from a room where there might have been a sex worker in that room, and this is further allegation of an illegal sex act or freak-offs or things of that nature. Now, I want to move on to something else. The names of people in this case, another big theme that came out during the course of this hearing is regarding identities and names. And you and I both know, Elizabeth, this is something that has been litigated between the prosecution and the defense quite a lot leading up to this hearing. And there is terms about enterprise letters, about the prosecution putting in sealed letters about more specific examples of what is racketeering, what are the dates, what are the names, what are the places. The idea of names of people in this case, are they referring to witnesses? Are they referring to alleged victims? What happened today regarding the identities of people in this case and whether or not the defense will know who the prosecution plans to call?
This was another interesting moment in the hearing, Jesse. It seemed like the lawyers were speaking in legal terms, and a lot of the information was kept private or under seal. At one point, when the government was talking about a certain topic, Diddy's lawyer, Alexander Shapiro, quickly reminded the judge that this information was sealed and shouldn't be fully discussed in open court. She didn't say that exact phrase, but she made it clear she wanted to be careful about what was said publicly, especially about something called the enterprise letter. One thing that stood out was what the government said about some of the potential witnesses. They explained that many of these witnesses are scared of having their names made public or even being known to Diddy's legal team. This shows how much power Diddy used to have, whether in the music industry, over his employees, or even over the women in his life. The government didn't share too many details since a lot of this is sealed, but they did clearly say that some people are afraid to be identified. So now, the government and defense are trying to figure out a solution. From what I understand, the government will give a list of witness names to the defense, but you can imagine how nervous some of these people must feel. Some of them worked for Diddy for years, others maybe only a short time, but now they could be asked to testify about what really happened behind the scenes at what the government calls the Combs enterprise.
And then the final point I want to mention and get some clarification on are timelines. I'm still shocked that this trial is going to happen by May 5th, 2025. It's only a few months away. And the idea about pre-trial conference, jury questionnaire, jury selection, a motion schedule, it seemed to me that the defense got a win today in what they wanted for a schedule. Talk to us about what we can expect, some key moments coming up leading up to May 5th.
It looks like the final pre-trial conference is scheduled for late April, right before the jury questionnaires are sent out. The defense is asking for a large number of jurors, about 300 people per day. That's a lot, but it shows they want things to move quickly. Still, Jesse, it seems like the defense got a small win here. One thing the defense asked for was to question potential jurors privately, one-on-one, instead of doing it in a big open room. The judge agreed to that, so that's a preview of how things will go once the trial starts. Jury selection was originally expected to begin around May 5th, and many thought that opening statements might start that day too. But now it looks like jury selection will begin a bit earlier, and the actual trial will start slightly later, probably pushed back about a week. That's because they're expecting so many people to come through the courthouse to be considered for the jury. So yes, this is a big case, and everyone wants to be fully prepared. Both sides want to make sure everything is done properly, nothing rushed. Even though opening statements will likely be delayed by just a week, we can expect a long jury selection process. Every day, around 300 people will be screened until they choose the final group of jurors. Each potential juror will be questioned carefully and will also have to fill out a detailed questionnaire. This was something the defense pushed for, and the judge agreed. The government wasn't totally on board with it, but it looks like that's the plan moving forward.
I mean, that's the hope. They have an idea about how long jury selection is going to be. This is a very high-profile case. There has been so much already put out there. It's not about trying to find a jury that doesn't know Sean Combs or knows that he's been criminally indicted. It's the idea of trying to put that away and put that to the side and go in objectively. Maybe easier said than done. We shall see. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being our eyes and our ears about what we're happening in that courtroom. And thank you for going down there. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap up, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your questions. We'll continue this maybe in the next pretrial conference at the end of next month. We shall see. Always developments in the Sean Combs case. We really appreciate your support. We really appreciate you tuning in. I'm Jesse Weber. We'll catch you next time.